Today we're talking about the Facebook Instagram outage, again, the impacts of social media, but also, do we think Facebook execs are really putting profits over people? Well, let's explore. We've been inspired by podcasts like The Daily and some of our reading, NPR.
Wall Street Journal.
Going to talk about Wall Street Journal. So first question. First question.
My number one news source.
What is your number one news source again?
TMZ.
TMZ.
Let's get going because it is a mini segment, so we don't have a lot of time. But we're all at work. I don't know.
This is what's the quick check. The check-in.
This is what working moms are about. We're the best at multitasking, right?
Yes.
So the outage, Instagram and Facebook, like when did you notice there was an outage this past Monday? And did it affect you at all? Did it change your outlook on social media?
I can't believe that happened on Monday. This week is all weird. I thought that was like yesterday or something.
Did you guys have no idea?
I had no idea until Isa texted us.
And I had no idea to our friend Gina texted us, but she's a social media marketer, so it would make sense that she had an idea.
Yeah.
Monday was like a super Monday for me. So like for me, I'm like a lurker. I'm like a lurker on social media. I don't post that much, but I'll read the heck out of other people's business. And that's like when it's brain break time, like during dinner.
Yeah.
I noticed at dinner.
I was on the way back from dropping the kids off, and I had posted something to my business account for stories, and I needed to delete it. And then I just noticed like I couldn't delete it. Like it just kept giving me an error. And then I was like, oh crap. So then I went to the other account and it was like, oh, can't refresh. Went to the other account and I was like, oh, can't refresh. And then I was like, oh shit. But I mean, at the end of the day, I thought it was kind of nice to just like not have to worry about anything and to have a break from it.
Yeah, for sure. I know Gina said there was like a mass exodus going on to Twitter too, and
it was
like,
funny. It was like a roll call.
Everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, she was like, I just want to make sure all my friends are okay.
But I think it was like pretty eye-opening. A lot of small business owners are talking about the fact that like, oh crap, like I run my business on Facebook, I run it on Instagram. I don't own this platform. So like, if anything happens, this, a lot of people lost a lot of business on Monday because of the outage, right? They would normally have been posting, got sales, whatever it might be. So I think that's just like another reminder that, the only thing you really can own is your email list. So you need to build that to be able to contact your customers when this might happen again, which I swear to God, it happened earlier today for like a little blip of time. Like
I thought it did. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really great insight because Chuk and I may not think of it from that standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I mean, I think even Zuckerberg lost like billions of dollars in that like few couple of hours. So yeah, the small business or anybody really relying on marketing on those platforms probably really did take a hit, So,
I wonder what the collective people that like literally like live on the platform were they like dying? Like were they like pull down refresh or were they enjoying their day? Who knows?
I'm sure. I'm positive. I'm sure there was a little freak out and then it was like, okay, let me take a break then because I can't do anything.
It was nice. I gotta say.
I can imagine if that happened during my like brain break time. That could have been nice. I could have just put the phone down and paid extra attention to my boys. Although I also think, like, sometimes I really try to do that. I'm gonna engage and I'm gonna live in the moment and really enjoy my boys. But they don't want anything to do with me sometimes. So it's fine. I'll go back to my phone.
I thought it was also weird and somewhat coincidental that it happened the same day that the whistleblower was testifying.
Well, that brings us into our next subject, the whistleblower, Frances Haugen. She was a former project manager for Facebook, specifically working in, let me get this right, civic integrity for elections. So she did have some really good insights, concerning things to me about how Facebook can make better choices in the way we're guided to social media and influence. So yeah, let's talk about it. One thing I want to say is that the day did bring up that Mark Zuckerberg would end his meetings pumping his fist, saying company over country. So
I think
just
that's
saying.
crazy. I know.
That's
I think
crazy.
that's crazy.
Who was the source? Who was the source of that? Was that Francis Haugen? I want to
think
know
it
how the Daily learned that.
I think it just says it's like well known that he did that. I think they just mentioned that it was well known that he did that.
On top of just being morally wrong, that sounds extra douchey.
Yes.
And
It does.
it's like kind of company culture, right? Leading that. So it just is almost more damning if that actually is happening, I guess.
Yeah, don't do that.
The other thing I want to say is, like, you know, we're going off of like the articles we read, so we're not
This is not fully vetted. We're just
Yeah.
chit chatting like you would with your girlfriends.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it is interesting that you know, what was uncovered was that they were aware, essentially, that, you know, there's harmful effects, and that even though that information surfaced, they decided that, I'd rather get more users on the platform and not do anything that might harm the user experience, which would then obviously impact their financials.
Bottom line, yeah.
And I think it's a little bit disheartening, but I'm not surprised about it, because they're a large corporation with like over 3 billion users, which is like, you know, more than half the global population. So not surprising, but also disheartening. And it's like, how do you sort of get around that? Is that, do we put more regulations in place? And then what does that look like? You know, what is it that we can actually put in place? I think, you know, the harm that we probably think about as parents is our children's emotional welfare. And there was a lot of, what do you call that, research that came out about girls and their body image, and the impact of Instagram on that. So I think it's a component. I mean, you know, you don't get, I mean, you can, obviously Instagram can contribute to your depression, but there are other factors that existed before Instagram was created. People had depression before that, and there's many causes, trauma, you know, genetics, whatever it might be. But it's like, how can Instagram and Facebook be better about that? And I say that knowing that, you know, I think social media, you know, sometimes there are pitfalls to it, but there's also wonderful things about social media. I mean, like, just like meeting people that you never would meet, like the networking benefits, all that stuff is great. So it's like, how do we get more of that happiness and that positive experience out there? And I don't know what it is, because you can't really control people and what they post, you know, and you can't control people's reactions. And I don't know how we do that as parents. It's like, what I was thinking about was like, oh, well, you have to, you know, raise your kid to have like that self-confidence, you know? But how do you do that for sure? I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just, talk about how we get there. But one concerning thing to me is that it seems that in some of their research, the internal research with Facebook, is that the algorithms, the way they focus it and the way they push, you know, content to you is like at an escalated pace. If you're looking into something, maybe something as simple as, you know, healthy food choices can lead you down the line to promoting, you know, unhealthy practices, you know, with food. And so I think that was more concerning for me, because there's a certain amount. I mean, we try to give our kids a foundation to be grounded and make the correct choices or the right choices for them in their lives, but to hear that algorithms can lead you down like the slippery slope of looking for healthy food choices versus, you know, unhealthy food practices, and how that is escalated, and that the choices by execs may maybe they're not making the best choices on a scale from 1 to 5. The bottom line is the most important versus scaling back on some of those harmful potential content. It's almost like drugs. We have a drug epidemic, and no matter how good you raise your children, it could be addictive. And I feel like maybe the exact choices lead to that type of environment. But there are definitely positives, because say you have depression or you have anxiety, there's shared experience in social media that you get that also give you positive experiences and a community, just like you said, networking.
Yeah.
So there's definitely pluses. And I just think that hopefully this leads to Facebook execs making better choices when it comes to the way content is pushed to us, adults and children.
I mean, if you think about, somebody else explained it to me, like, even if you think about, like, during Trump and all the misinformation that was being spread, it's sort of like you just then stay in this bubble and they just continue to serve you all this misinformation. So you're just like seeing the same crap and it's not necessarily true. So it's like also regulations on how that type of stuff should get filtered. I was actually listening to, there's something called the Facebook Files on the Wall Street Journal, one of the podcasts. And the first episode is about a whitelist. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but there are specific people that essentially there's rules to Facebook, right? Like you can't do revenge porn. You can't spread misinformation. You can't, traffic humans, whatever it might be. And there are certain things that if you do them on the platform, you're in violation of the policies. And particularly like with the example that I was listening to, revenge porn, there is a hard and fast rule where it's like the content should get taken down and then your account gets deleted immediately. However, there are people that are on this whitelist, and they could be celebrities, they could be politicians. They're generally people that have very, strong followings, like, lots of millions of followers. In this particular example, it was a soccer player who had a woman accuse him of raping her. And then what he did was then he went on an Instagram Live. He happens to be on the whitelist. He went on an Instagram Live and then he showed the text between them. He showed her nude photos. And because he was on the whitelist, like this stuff did not get taken down for 24 hours. Meanwhile, then she got harassed because all her photos were being shown for like upwards of 24 hours. And Facebook employees were, kind of sort of intercepted it. But because he was on the whitelist, they weren't able to take the post down. So it's really interesting because, they've said that they are, sticking to this policy of like, we're not making any exceptions for people, but they do have this program where there are certain people that kind of like can slip through the cracks. So
how do you get on the whitelist? What is the whitelist?
You probably have to be verified or...
Well, the first example they gave was of Rihanna. In this particular podcast, it was of Rihanna who had posted, I think, a photo of her nude, like a partially nude from something. Like, I don't know what kind of campaign it was. And then her account got taken down. And that was the impetus for this program where they eventually started like adding people to the list. But there was... some obscene amount of numbers of people. It was in the millions, I think is what they quoted in the podcast that were on this list. It's just imagine like how much misinformation or information that should not be spread is coming from these accounts because they're not subject to the same rules that every other person is, So it's just interesting because I feel like there is, some, from an image perspective, they're, exuding this like, no, we're fair. But, there's a lot of stuff that these, that this information behind the scenes has kind of brought to light as well, about the inner workings of the company.
Wow. Do you guys remember when our timelines were, or what we saw, the content was based on timeliness of posts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like chronological order?
Yeah, and it seemed like that was more fair versus now I think what they use is like engagement-based ranking and amplification of interest.
Yeah.
So that's, and also
I don't like that at all.
I don't like this at all because if Rihanna is able to do implied nudity like everybody else should be, like I should be able to breastfeed my kid on social media if Rihanna can show half her breasts, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's also a separate issue. I mean, like, why are men's nipples like not
More special than ours?
not an
They're
issue?
not.
But
That's
then
for our
ours are.
next mini segment. Sexualization of women.
Seriously.
So they talk about Facebook's internal research and how they're not really taking into account their own research. They're not putting the emphasis or making decisions based on this research. And so they have room to grow. This is not the end of Facebook or their platform.
Yeah.
But they really need to make a change. And
they can if they want to.
exactly.
They just need to want to do it. Because they benefit. The more people who use Facebook, the better it is for them. Unfortunately, they've learned, and it's true. We all personally know this. Like when there's some attention-grabbing event that's occurring that we can't get away from. Like when COVID first started, how much time did we all spend on the internet just glued reading what happened where, right? Like that was probably really great for them. And I was on it too, reading whatever I could because we're all scared, and Facebook benefits off that. And generally, I want to believe that the higher ups want this world to be a good place. They want people to love each other. They want to cut out the hate. But maybe we can get some people in there that'll effectuate that. Because
this is like
because they have the power to make things better.
This is capitalism at its worst.
Exactly.
So I think about the UN program I'm in, and it's all about environmental and social governance. And basically, you and we can make all these small impacts in our daily lives to conserve water, electricity, to better, equity. But it really is up to these big businesses who are making negative impacts to reverse that. And I would have to say the same goes for Facebook and its platforms, is that they have the power, like you said, Duke, to truly institute social change in either a negative or a positive way. And they really should put at the forefront of their mission, of their values, to at least make it fair and not to further negative impact, misinformation, etc. But what they need to do that is pressure from users, right? Pressure from their clientele.
Yeah, and I think it is really complicated if you think about it. It's like misinformation is one thing. I think that, you can vet sources, but then how do you create reform around what a person posts and another person's reaction to that, right? You can't like in that way. So it's complicated. It really is.
Yeah, I think it all lies in their algorithm. It seems like, and who knows how truthful or how factual Frances Haugen's information or her, I didn't actually read the research or the leaked documents. I just listen to some podcasts and some of the things that she was saying, but it seems like they could be making better decisions and they're opting to not. Let's talk about Instagram for Kids. That's just something that they're developing, and so I think that goes along the lines of social governance. I mean, their own research shows that children bring their parents online. So it's in their value to develop this kid Instagram thing. And I think they've had, this is what is being said, that they've had internal talks about, leveraging things so simple as like play dates to get kids and parents online, which I think seems a little predatory, but we don't know how that shakes out on an app, right? And it is great to be able to easily schedule a play date with people, like-minded people in your area. Like that sounds on the surface great, but I guess, getting more people online, like how does this relate to, I think Big Tobacco and Frances Haugen made this analogy, like Facebook, comparing Facebook to Big Tobacco. It started to try to advertise to kids or make kid-friendly words part of their ads. How is that related to Facebook? Is it really? I mean, I almost feel like they're going in that direction with this Instagram for Kids thing.
I mean, as far as like the self-reported documents that they had, I did hear that some of that was not done like scientifically. It was like basically they were asking people questions. So it wasn't like truly like how you would get scientific data, particularly from those kid studies. So I think when you liken it to the big tobacco companies, it's a little bit different because there's legit medical like findings of like, you know, what tobacco does to your body, death rates, et cetera, et cetera. It was children that were part of the study that were self-selecting and saying like, hey, this is how Instagram makes me feel. And feelings is a lot different than actual data. So maybe that is also part of why Instagram hasn't, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, hasn't shared that on a wider scope. I'm not sure, but there's something to be said for the research, but then I'm just not sure, like, it's not
How
a truly
reputable.
vetted, yeah, research report, you know what I mean? So either way, though, from a parenting perspective, like, yeah, I feel very cautious about like eventually having my kids on a phone and having them on a social media app. I mean, like, do you guys feel the same way?
Yes.
My kid's the youngest, so she's not on any app. Like has not done anything on an app yet, other than maybe look over my shoulder when I'm on something, or I maybe show her a video. She's really on Netflix right now, but that's not an app, and she's not selecting anything, so
Yeah.
I can't say.
I mean, like, personally, like, sometimes, like, even when I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh, that person looks great. Like, and then it gets you into this, like, dirty thing of, like, thinking about yourself, right? And this is exactly the impact that it would have on teens. So I worry about that because I'm not, like, I would say somebody that has, like, super low self-esteem. I have an adequate amount, but even that, you know, makes me feel bad sometimes. So, like, imagine how that would make your child react, you know?
Yeah, and and something they brought up on the daily too is Facebook or Instagram specifically. There's some type of like perfect aesthetic that's a little more glorified there than other apps. Like if you go to TikTok, it's a little more refreshing because everybody's just kind of being themselves.
Yes.
And with Instagram, it's like a little more polished. You see filters all the time on everybody, and so it's like a totally different platform. And can they encourage more of that authenticity that would help kids and even adults feel a little better body positivity?
That is what I was going to say too. It's like about like how do you actually incentivize people to be more authentic? Like I follow this like account, it's like called Anxious Moms, and I love it because it's just all about people that fucking have anxiety and all the things that are like wrong with them. And I'm like, I relate to this. This is like fantastic, you know? And it's like, how do you find more of that versus like, or how do you get an understanding that that picture perfect is not every day, all day? Like everybody has ups and downs in their lives. But I don't know how you break through that mentally for somebody.
I think we need to remind ourselves to just take everything with a grain of salt. And when Kai is able to use the internet and see perfect images on Instagram and everything's so perfect and everyone's so pretty, just, remember that's not all real. That's what I always have in my head. When I see these really pretty people, their skin isn't that clear.
Might be a
Yeah,
filter.
it's probably an amplified thing. I mean, to be completely honest, I think the same thing of when I see people in person. I'm like, oh, I can snap back that easily, and all that. So they don't even need a filter for me to feel that way sometimes, And it really is just like we just need, more healthy conversations, I guess, around body positivity, and especially for moms around, like getting back into the groove. It's a total mind bend, and we talked about that, being pregnant and that first, postpartum couple of months. I'm still in like snatching back, and I'm 2 years down the line, so I still love myself though. But I think we all have some insecurities in that way.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'm like, this is the human condition, so it shouldn't really be on them to solve it, but it's like, how do you become part of the solution, right?
Right.
How do we not make it worse?
Yeah, exactly.
Use it to our advantage. Use other people's insecurities to our advantage. Because I don't know where I heard this. I heard it from someone, but every time this lady who I was probably watching on Instagram said, with regard to like the beauty industry, anytime she feels bad about herself, she sees a picture that makes her feel, oh, I wish I was 5 pounds lighter. I wish I had prettier hair, more expensive clothes. She thinks to herself, well, who's benefiting from this? And then that puts into perspective that you are great and you are perfect and you don't need anything.
That's a great question to ask yourself.
Because someone's benefiting.
Yeah, it's like that thought that you always should ask yourself, like, if anything bad enters your mind, you just go, well, does this serve me? And if it doesn't, bye.
Great questions to keep in the back of your head when you're scrolling the internet.
I know.
Well,
lastly, I wanted to say, Tilo, you should show us your new tattoo because I think it's also really great.
Oh, is it going to be, I don't think you can see it. Can you?
Well, tell us what it says and what it means to you.
Okay, so I talked about anxiety earlier because I have high functioning anxiety. So I feel like I just went through a rough patch after having the kids at home, and I really could not focus on being in the moment. I was constantly worried about the next thing I had to do, or the next place the kids had to be, or the next thing we had to do as a family. So I got this, I can't remember, it's called ink tattoos maybe? I got this fake one. And it said, and it's one that you can wear for 2 weeks, and it said, be here now. And I noticed that when I wore it, it really helped me center myself. So I decided to just go get it permanently. And I did.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's so
Thank you.
classy.
It's a great reminder. Be here now, even in, with social media impacts. I mean, it's just about being grounded in yourself and, asking who benefits from this.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for chatting with us, little girl chat today. Thank you to our listeners for joining us in this quick chat about last week's events surrounding the outage. I don't think it really affected any of us too bad, but I don't think it
working
really
moms who don't work in social marketing.
That was a real work phone. What's like a dial in? But anyways, again, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you think. What are your thoughts on the, media that's out there around this subject? What are you doing with your kids? If your kids are older in their teens, I'm sure you're more, experiencing the impacts of this. Let us know. Maybe we can have you on for the next chat. But yeah, let us know how you're navigating your children's use of apps and social media. And again, we always aim to reflect and empower other women, families, talk about issues important to us. Join us in our talks, join us in our TITT-Tea, subscribe to our newsletter that comes out monthly, and follow us on Instagram. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys. See you next time.
Bye.